Because that would include any period. So I'm a frail elderly person. My wife is looking after me. She's going to go and stay with my daughter for the weekend because she needs some space. I can't be left on my own at the house. So I'm going to have to go into a residential care home funded by Herefordshire County Council. I live in Hereford for the weekend. Well, then I'll be getting a weekend, 3 nights in a residential care home, so it's be 3 nights under the National Assistance Act. That's all. There's no such thing at law as a respite care or short break. It doesn't exist. It's what are you getting? Well, I'm getting 3 nights in a residential care home, so I'm getting 3 nights under the National Assistance Act. What's the point about that? Well, the point about that is that I'm getting it. I, the disabled person. My wife's not getting it. She's not getting her pillows fluffed. She's not in a care home. So respite care, well, it doesn't exist, but that service is a service given to me, the disabled person. It's not my wife's service. It's not a carer's service. She doesn't have to be there anyway, because we've abolished the liable family rule. So when we talk about short break respite care, we're not talking about carer services. Those are disabled people's services. It's the disabled person being looked after in the care home, not the carer. So if I, as a lawyer, have got a client and they've been assessed as needing residential respite care or will see community-based respite care, I'm going to want to look at the care plan for the disabled person. And once it's been decided it's needed, it's got to be provided because that's what the Act says. And if the local authority says, well, we can't do that anymore, and I haven't magically improved, then we're going to have a bit of a tussle. So respite care is not a carer service. And if anybody's ever involved in the NHS continuing care, that's a very important point as well, because the NHS says they don't do carer services. That's another matter, but you can say, well, respite care is not a carer service, so we don't even have to have that conversation.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, please, yeah.
So how do they, what sort of issues would be looked at to determine that the disabled person or the elderly person needed residential accommodation if their care is normally adequately provided at home? So in that sort of situation we're talking about.
Well, I'll come on to that because what we'll have to do is there'll have to be what's called an assessment. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on disabled people's assessment, but I will spend longer on carers' assessments. The disabled person's assessment is what I call a what-if assessment. What if we don't do it? What will happen? That's all a community care assessment is. You just say, what if? What if we don't provide a weekend in the care home for Fred? What will happen? And if the answer is, you'll suffer serious harm, which we call critical and substantial, then the local authority's got to do it. If the answer is no, he won't suffer significant harm, then the local authority doesn't, because they call it moderate or low. So you say, what will happen if we don't give Fred a weekend care? Well, you see, if Fred's on his own, and of course Fred's wife or sister or brother or mother or whatever doesn't have to be there because we've abolished the liable family rule, then you've got to say, can he be on his own? Now, the answer is he can't be on his own. He needs 24/7 support or 24-hour support. Then, of course, the answer is, what are we going to do? We don't have to give him a care home. And that's the difference between a need and a service. His need is to be looked after in a safe, supported, and appropriate, dignified environment. You could do that in the house by putting in home care. You could take him to a day centre. You could put him in a care home. There are various, always different services to meet that need. But often with elderly people, it's going to be a care home, probably. So that it all depends on an assessment. And very often it's going to be a combined assessment of the carer's assessment and the disabled person's assessment. My book's sort of 1,200 pages long, and a lot of that is about the disabled person's assessment. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it's basically just what if. What if we don't do this? What will happen?